Peace, everybody. Saylove here, your host of the Jazzy Peoples podcast, also producer of the Jazz Flower with Saylove out of Maine Public, radio partner with WJZP Jazz Portland, and of course, WUCF transmitting from the city beautiful. And today I have a very special guest. Today we're honored to welcome a true pioneer of Latin soul and one of the architects of the Boogaloo sound, the legendary Joe Bataan. From the streets of Spanish Harlem to stages around the world, his music has bridged cultures, blended soul and Latin rhythms, and influenced generations of artists. Joe is bringing that timeless sound to our good friends in the South. He'll be in Florida on Thursday, March 19th at the Social in Orlando, and Friday, March 20th at Zay Zay in Miami. Thursday's show is hosted by one of our favorite record stores in the city, beautiful, Uncle Tony's Donut Shop. A big shout out to our brothers at the Donut Shop for helping bring Joe to the city, beautiful. Joe, welcome. It's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. I've been looking forward for a long time to invade Florida.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I've been looking forward to seeing your show for so long, for decades, really. So I'm truly honored to have you on today.
Thank you.
And so I guess we'll get right on into it. We can talk about the shows a little bit later on, but just to get started, especially for the younger audience. So, a lot of our listeners are students, university students, researchers, faculty, and of course, Latin jazz lovers and fans alike. So, for the young ones, especially, or for anybody, anyone new to the music, when people hear the name Joe Bataan today, what do you hope they immediately associate with your music and your message?
Well, it's a journey that I've always been an underground artist. I'm not Elton John or the Beatles, but for some reason, my fans are loyal to me throughout the years, which is evident after being in the business 60 years that my music is still relevant in different parts of the world. So when they hear my music, I like to think that I'm imparting goodness to the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. I certainly agree with that. Couldn't have said it better. And for the young listeners specifically who are discovering your catalog for the first time, what song or songs would you tell them to start with and why?
Well, that's hard to say, without being arrogant. Uh, they'd have to find out for themselves because what I've noticed in my travels around the world in the last 60 years, that my songs are popular, different titles in different parts of the world. If I go to California, I can't leave without singing My Cloud. New York, it's Ordinary Guy. Japan, it's The Bottle. Uh, England is Afro Filipino. Mexico, Mujer Mia. I mean, you could go on and on. So it never stops to amaze me that when I play, people are always asking for songs from my catalog. Maybe I haven't played in 30, 40 years, but they're still relevant with a lot of people and it brings a lot of memories to them.
Absolutely. No, I love how you answered that question and just the relevance of different tunes in different regions.
Mhm.
So I think that that will give our listeners just a little place to start. But your catalog is extensive, so I warn the listeners, you are truly in for a treat if you are new. All right. So next, I guess we'll speak a little bit about your early life musical roots, growing up in Spanish Harlem. How did the mix of cultures in the neighborhood shape the sound that you eventually created?
Well, New York and El Barrio, Spanish Island, where I grew up, um, there were all nationalities living there. There were Italians, Jewish. Um, they were there before the Puerto Ricans came. African Americans always had been there, Italians, and everybody mixed together. It was just a different vibe that you have that you don't have today. Um, People knew each other down the block from a radius of 2 miles. Everybody knew each other's names, and the families helped raise your kids. Because if you were caught doing something wrong, hey, I'm going to tell your mother. And that's the way it went. Um, it was a fun time growing up. We didn't have a lot of the modern um, things that kids have today, but we enjoyed ourselves because we made up our way. We made up our games, we made up our music, and we made up our lives growing up. So it was a fun time.
Beautiful, very beautiful. Shout outs to Harlem, of course. Always, always. All right. So, life itself, of course, comes with both blessings and challenges. How did life experiences shape your songwriting and the themes in your music?
Well, growing up, I probably had an identity problem and didn't know it. For me, growing up, it didn't matter what you were, or who you were, or how you looked. And that's how I was brought up. Uh, it wasn't until later on that uh, I noticed that people made a difference in where you came from with your music, which I thought it should never have transpired. But it did. And of course, I was no different. During my early years, I was like most kids, running wild, trying to find my space in the world and getting into trouble and having my Waterloos. So I was able to survive that, and it influenced my music. Everything that I did in life, I wrote about. Of course, I was in a reformatory at a young age. Um, After it was released, uh, I started this band, the youngest band in Latin music. Some of the youngsters were 13 years old. I was 20. And it was like a Cinderella story. We molded together. We created this music, and the rest was history. Uh, we were we were the Michael Jacksons and the Smokey Robinsons and the Frankie Lyman's at a young age during the '60s when the Boogaloo craze erupted. And I just thank God for the blessing that He gave me and was able to harness me and take me out of all my negative ways and the things I did. And I was able to find a space in the world for Joe Bataan.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. I should have mentioned before. Do you want to try putting your flipping your phone sideways?
Sideways?
I mean, like no, like if you turn it, you got a vertical. If you put it this way,
Oh,
it might give us a better view. It might not. Sometimes you just tilt it sideways, like
yeah, yeah.
it might
When I don't want to, it does it.
it okay, no worries. No worries. I was just like, let me check, but no, no worries. All right, so we'll get back to it. But no, I love that answer. And it's just phenomenal. Like I said, like both the challenges and the blessings and just what comes out of it, what comes out of it when you
Hmm.
come out of it. So thank you for sharing that. Um all right. So next, segue to creating the sounds. Your music blends soul, Latin rhythms, and storytelling. We may have somewhat already touched on this, but what has this, was this combination intentional, or would you say it more so just developed as a natural reflection of life in your environment?
Well, it's a natural element from life. You understand? I'm self-taught musician.
Right.
After I came out of the reformatory, I studied theory, but under the tutelage of a Mark Francis. But he wouldn't let us touch an instrument unless we learned theory. And of course, that was very difficult. We didn't really understand what the heck he was talking about. I took the trumpet up, but I couldn't really hit the high notes. So after that, I was determined to do something with my life, and I shut myself in a community center. I asked the director, could I go into the auditorium and play the piano? I didn't know how to play. Uh, by trial and error, I discovered a triad. And from there, it's a Cinderella story. I developed on how to play a piano because I always had a good ear and knowing harmony, but I didn't know any instrument. And from that instrument, one day I walked into that community center where I went every day for 3 hours, and there's a bunch of kids in there, and they had a band, and I was appalled. that they were in the place because I was sort of the tough guy in the neighborhood. And I approached them and I said, "What are you guys doing here?" And they said nothing. They knew my reputation. So as a matter of drama, I stuck my knife into the piano and I said, "You know what?" I noticed that they didn't have a piano player. And I said, "I'm the leader of the band." And the rest was history. We laugh about it today. Um, those kids were determined uh, to learn their craft. We learned by trial and error. We taught each other the notes. Most of them had holes in their horns and stuff like that. And it was just a Cinderella story how I had to take them home every night because their mothers didn't want them to play with me
Oh,
because
wow.
I was the neighborhood thud. And then finally, I had to convince them that I had changed my ways. And in 6 months, we were making records. It's unheard of.
That's phenomenal. Were there any particular artists you want to mention that kind of inspired you around that
Oh,
early
yes.
time?
Well, I started in doo-wop, learning the old classics, the lowrider songs,
Oh, yeah.
uh, the Cadillacs. Smokey was very influential, especially Frankie Lyman back in those days.
Yes.
Uh, we we loved harmony, and most of the groups that sang in harmony that time, the Spaniards, the Ink Spots, we learned from them because we tried to imitate them in the streets and in the hallways and in the subway stations. So that was my first great influence. And then after being released from reformatory, things had changed in the neighborhood. Some of the guys I went around to start singing said, "Joe, we don't do that anymore." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "We got a band." I said, "A band?" I said, "Gee, I'm interested. Let me see." So he said, "Come to the rehearsal." So they were playing Latin music, the same kids that went to school with me. And I was amazed because I knew nothing about it. And then I had an argument with the guy because he didn't want me to be there to hear his rehearsal. And I walked out, but I threatened him and I said, "Look, you're going to see one day, I'm going to show you." And I guess I did. I thought it would take me 10 years. It took me 6 months and I was on stage.
Phenomenal. I love it. I love it. Um, and then, okay, so segueing to the Boogaloo movement, of course, it exploded in New York in the late
Right,
60s, right?
right.
What do you remember most about the energy of that time?
Oh, it was like the twist. It was like any dance craze that came along, the Charleston. There was always fads, and the Boogaloo was one. Um, the Boogaloo was spelled differently with Latin kids. It came from Chicago from African Americans, but the Latin kids took it over and spelled it differently, and they gave it a new sound. What it was a cha-cha with English lyrics. And when I heard that, I looked at the formula and I said, wow, I could do that. I said, that's down my line because I wasn't really fluential in speaking Spanish, but I could read very well. So I started to read books and play tunes with a cha-cha beat, and I started to sing them. And there was the original singer was angry at me one day, and he said, "Why you keep giving orders? I don't know how to do that." I said, "Well, your accent, you have to change it a little." He said, "If you know so much, why don't you do it yourself?" And I did, and I never stopped singing since. So, uh, the Boogaloo was unbelievable sound back then. It was like the beginning of the twist, if you know how that phenomenon was. And everybody was doing it. Pete Rodriguez started it up. Johnny Colon, even Willie Colon did some. Ricardo Ray. Everybody jumped on the bandwagon because that was how New York was growing up. That was the new sound. It was starting to influence African Americans and everybody else that didn't know Latin music.
Wow. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. I love it. I love all the history behind the music, the evolution. And when you look back now, did you realize at the time you were helping to create a sound that would become so influential?
You know what? Sometimes I cry and I sit down and I reminisce and I say, wow. I said, who would have thought that little guy in a tenement house that was writing songs that it was still last 60 years later. So I'm a sentimental romantic. And when I think about kids in a different generation, listening to my music and dancing to it, and having no idea that some of the stuff that I do is 60 years old, I'm amazed. So it shows, and I'm not bragging, but a lot of the things that I did was ahead of my time.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. No, not bragging at all. Just very, very influential over the years. Um, and speaking of which, your music has been rediscovered and sampled by newer generations. So, what does it feel like for you hearing your sound live on in these other ways, whether through DJs, producers, sampling, just rediscovering your music?
Well, that's one of the greatest compliments an artist can get. When somebody duplicates your music or imitates it or anything like that, it's a blessing, and it's a tribute to your art form and what you did. So I'm gratified anytime anybody attempts to do anything of mine, and the music lives on.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have a lot of DJ friends, of course, being in radio, and so many fans of your music out there, just like the record shop as well. Just so many fans, DJs, producers, and so forth. So, um, when you hear modern artists, blending genres today, newer genres, does that remind you of what you and your peers were doing, back in the days?
Oh yes, without a doubt. I mean, the music has always really been the same. A B flat is a B flat. It was the same thing when Chopin or Tchaikovsky was doing it, and but it's just done differently. So each era, a lot of the music always comes back in different forms, um, and another generation takes to it and makes what they want out of it. It's how it appeals to them and what kids can do, and the pulse is always brought by the young generation with their dance moves, you know? So once you have a hook that's universal, everybody loves it. And music is a gateway to living, really. It's life. It's life inspiring. It does a lot for the soul. It's a gift,
And it brings so many people together from different backgrounds,
without a doubt.
just the love of the music for
Yeah.
sure. Um, so, speaking of the show, you will be bringing your music to Florida, shows in Orlando, and Miami on March 19th and 20th. For those out there who have not seen you perform, what can fans expect when they come to see Joe Bataan and his band today?
Well, I can tell you what has been done over the last 25 years. People keep coming back, and that is a sign for me that I'm still relevant. Um, my fans are fans that were underground that have followed me for years, mostly record collectors, DJs, um, you name it. My music is sought out. Sometimes it's hard to find in the record shops, but nevertheless, there's been a resurgence, and my music is starting to resurface around the world. So you never can expect what you think you're going to expect at a Joe Bataan show. You always expect the unexpected because you're going to see all types of cultures there, right? And I try when I was honored at the Smithsonian, the guy there, the curator, he summed it up. He said, "You're a bridge, Joe." He said, "To the Latin community, to the Asian community, and to the African American community." And I said, "Yeah, I never thought about it like that." He says, "Yes, and that's why all three cultures want to honor you." And they put my portrait in the Smithsonian, which alongside Michael Jackson and everybody else, I was really, really amazed. But yeah, that's what they can expect. You can expect something that you haven't seen. I'm sure you haven't seen it in Florida,
Oh,
you know.
absolutely. Yeah.
So if you come on out, you're going to be in for a treat.
Absolutely. Do you, can you tell us just a little bit about the lineup? You know, the different people on the lineup,
Oh,
or
yeah. Well, we got two trumpets,
okay,
trombone, saxophone, Grammy nominated Julio Botti. We got Wilson Chumbo, Cornell on the conga. He's Grammy nominated. We got Darren Thompson, who's played with all the soul bands around the country. We got Victor Santos on piano. We got Joe Rivera, um, who presently sings with the Teenagers and a lot of other groups as background. There's my wife, Yvonne, who's one of the vocalist background singers also. We have Elvin Cartagena on guitar and his wife, Jessie Cartagena. So we call ourselves the Barrio Boys plus two, and the two are the two girls.
phenomenal. Well, we are looking forward to it for sure. Our friends in the South, in Orlando and Miami for sure. After all these years performing all around the world, what still excites you about stepping on stage today?
Oh, it's the love. You know, when I sing and people request songs while I'm on stage and they know the words and I can barely get to sing the song before they're joining in singing some of the songs like I Wish You Love, Ordinary Guy, The Prayer, which is very, very, very important to us in the group. Um, you name it. I mean, this Gypsy Woman, My Cloud. Oh, there's so many songs and
Gorgeous.
they never get enough because we can't play them all, but we try to do the best of what the crowd wants.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I know I am looking forward to it. Okay, and another one. So, when people look back at the history of Latin soul and boogaloo years from now, what do you hope they remember most about Joe Batan's contribution?
Well, it's not only a contribution because I've been guided by the big boss. I could have done none of these things without the Lord having his hand on me. And that's most primary with me in my life. I want him to remember that I was God fearing and I tried to impart goodness to the world. And love is so important that I try to express it in my songs. And I would hope that when a person leaves my concert, they take a little bit of that with them.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And another thing for any of our students out there, of course, we've got a lot of, music students tuning in as well. What advice would you give young artists trying to stay authentic in today's music landscape and or the industry?
Well, spirit, health, and knowledge. Spirit, you got to believe in something that's high powered. Knowledge, you cannot go and let a day pass by without learning something new. And keep your health, because with that, you'll be able to do the rest of the things. Treat your body and your temple well. And those are the ingredients to have a good life.
Beautiful, beautiful. Um, Anything else that you would like to share with the listeners? Um,
Well, for a long time, I brought rap music to Europe. A lot of people don't know that.
yes.
And when I did that, I went behind the Iron Curtain with Angela Davis, and I performed. And it was an experience because nobody had ever been past the Iron Curtain, and how I was accepted by a nation that had been devastated by the war, and they had outlawed racism. So in finding that, I found out that a lot of countries were never exposed to what I had done. It took me almost 30 years to get to England. And finally, when I did, I can't get enough of it. So I would think the same thing will happen in Florida. I'm like a household name in California, New York, and a lot of other places.
Of course.
But never have I been able to infiltrate Florida. And this is like the first time. And
Amazing.
that's why I'm looking so forward to it. So that I guess before the end comes, that at least they got a chance to see Joe Bataan.
Oh, of course, of course. Can you tell me just a little bit more about your experience there with Angela Davis that you were just telling us about? Just a little bit more.
Well, they had the young party back then when we were kids, and they performed. They asked me to perform at the Village Gate, and I performed, never knowing who they were. And then I found out that Angela Davis was a part of the group, and one of the girls there, that was a teacher that I knew, said, "Joe, would you like to accompany us on a trip?" I said, "Where?" He said, "Well, we're going to East Berlin and then Russia." I said, "Get out of here." He said, "Yeah, we can arrange it and everything. Get your band together if you want to take. There's no money, but you got a chance to travel over there." And of course, I had just finished attempting to throw a concert at Shea Stadium, and I just took off by myself. I got four guys from the band to follow, and we got on the plane. I went there without a passport. I don't
Wow.
ask me how I did that, but I guess Angela Davis arranged it for me to go that way. And when we got there, I saw something that I had never seen. I had never seen kids holding hands, walking through the streets, just celebrating love, And I said, "Gee, I'm on the other side of the world. People don't even know this, you know." And hearing their stories and what was going on in the world made me have a different look at what was going on in the world because all we knew was the United States. We didn't know anything about communist countries or any place that wasn't in our hemisphere. And when I got to play, I decided to write a song called Peace, Friendship, Solidarity. And the whole German Democratic Republic stood up and gave me an ovation because I had translated part of the song into Russian, German, and Spanish. And the speech, the theme of the festival was peace, friendship, solidarity. And I like to think about that movement as a highlight of my life because after that, we went to Moscow and I saw there and I saw how people lived. And it just gave me some insight to really appreciate where I came from.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. I do have a bit of a history as a peace scholar as well, so I love the intersection of like peace studies, peace building, and music. It's just such a phenomenal intersection and so powerful that music has been in those like anti-apartheid and other movements around
Hmm.
the world. So I
Right.
love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, Let me see. All right. Well, I guess I would just say, I mean, we could talk all day. I do have some more questions, but I guess I would just say I know you've kind of shared some of this already, but what would you want your legacy to be like looking back?
Well, as I said, I like to remember as a person that was a pioneer in bringing a sound to the world. Uh, I would like people to know my story, which I'm in the midst of doing my autobiography called Streetology,
I love
and
it.
to know what I went through to get there. That there's hope for everyone. No one has to be stagnant in thinking that there's not a place in the world for them. All you have to have is effort, the endurance, and the love, and the hand of the Lord on you, and you could do anything.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Do you have any tentative date of when you think that autobiography will be available?
Okay, I'll be honest with you. I had finished it, and it was ready for publication, and apparently we ran into a hitch.
Okay.
The publisher couldn't put it out. And then when I started to look at the book in retrospect, I left out one big thing in that book. So I'm rewriting it
Mm.
uh, and adding some of the stuff that I had omitted because the story cannot be complete if I don't tell you the falls and the Waterloos that I went through. And that's what I'm going to have to conclude. And then how God saved me. And that's the most important because in my message, everybody writes a book. But if I can't give you anything out of that book, to give you hope, then it doesn't deserve to be read.
I love that. I love it. So it will be testimony. There will be testimony in that
Yeah, without a
autobiography.
doubt, God willing.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. So just there's no tentative date at this point. You're still reworking it.
Yeah, we're working on a documentary also.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, we're definitely looking forward to all of that. And any way I can support, of course, interview you again, speak more about that in the future. I'd definitely love to highlight that. I will be looking forward to that autobiography and documentary as well. Um, all right. Well, that's pretty much all I got for you right now. Like I said, I could definitely speak with you all day about the music, but I'll look forward to having you on again. We've been speaking with the legendary Joe Bataan. Don't miss your chance to see him live if you're in Florida, coming up on Thursday, March 19th at the Social in Orlando, hosted by Uncle Tony's Donut Shop, and Friday, March 20th at Zay in Miami. A huge thanks again to our friends at Uncle Tony's Donut Shop for bringing this incredible artist, or for helping bring this incredible artist to the city beautiful, and continuing to keep the culture alive. Joe, thank you so much for spending some
Thank
time
you.
with us and for sharing your story. It's been an absolute pleasure. I am a major fan, and
Oh,
we're looking forward to seeing you soon.
thank you. God bless.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
Ciao. Bye.
Peace.